Welcome to Consider This, where we examine themes that determine how healthy we are from a holistic perspective. The issues are submitted for your consideration and are designed to encourage maturity in all aspects of life. Your topic guide for this session is
Hi. In this short presentation, I will be talking about cumulative acute stress traumas, or something I like to call CAST, C-A-S-T. This presentation is targeted towards first responders and other professionals in the medical field which are exposed to traumas nearly on a daily basis. When I mention first responders, this includes but is not limited to police, fire, EMS, dispatchers, some nurses, and doctors. Though I am targeting first responders, the information in this presentation may apply to various occupations or individuals. Hi, my name is Esteban Rivera. I am a Marine Corps veteran, retired police officer, and now a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan. Over my career as a first responder, I have been exposed to the same types of fears, anxieties, depressions, traumas, acute stress disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorders that you may have been exposed to. Although no two first responders are exactly alike, nor are the critical incidents we are exposed to alike, our responses to our critical incidents will not be alike either. Though the first responder culture has an unwritten rule of how we should respond to our fears, anxieties, depressions, traumas, acute stress disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorders, the main three negative coping skills that first responders turn to because they are culturally accepted are alcohol, drugs, whether prescribed or illegal, or promiscuity. Though these negative coping skills must be addressed, I will talk about how we get to the negative coping skills because of cumulative acute stress traumas, CAST. I developed the word CAST from a psychological diagnosis called acute stress disorder. Though many of us have heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, few of us are aware that acute stress disorder is the predecessor to PTSD. The criteria for acute stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder are similar. Acute stress disorder symptoms will only last for a few days and up to a month. Acute stress disorder symptoms are more dissociative, which is commonly referred to as being in shock. If the symptoms of the critical incident last more than 30 days, a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder could apply. So how are first responders exposed to critical incidents? And how do we know whether it is a critical incident or not? In the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing EMDR modality of therapy, it describes two types of traumas, big T traumas and small T traumas. But make no mistake, they're both traumas. And what is a big T trauma for one first responder may only be a small T trauma for another first responder, and vice versa. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5th edition, the DSM-5, the criteria for both acute stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder have almost exact wording in that a person, a first responder, must be exposed to a trauma, what they believe is an actual or threatened death, a serious injury, or a sexual violation in one or more of the following ways. 1. Directly experience the traumatic event. Number 2. Witnessing in person the event as it occurs to others. 3. Learning the traumatic event occurred to a close family member or close friend. And 4. Experience repeated or extreme exposure to adverse details of traumatic events. First responders collecting bones, police officers being repeatedly exposed to child abuse. And if it's work-related, media, television, movies, pictures, which include traumatic images, can be traumatizing also. So using the criteria previously mentioned, how often are you as a first responder directly exposed to a critical incident? How often do you witness a dramatic event? How often is a family member or close friend, which could be a co-worker, involved in a critical event? And the fourth criteria, how often do you experience repeated or extreme exposure to critical events? I believe it's fair to say within those four criteria, first responders will be exposed to one of the four ways almost on a daily basis. And if that exposure is experienced on a daily basis, does it give you, the first responder, the opportunity to process those traumas before being exposed to the next trauma? This is where the cumulative acute stress traumas, the CAST, add up on a first responder because we tend to push the traumas, the fires, the car accidents, the homicide, the rape, kidnapping, and so many other traumas aside as we deal with the next trauma that we are dispatched to. Being exposed to traumas that I just mentioned are considered direct traumas. It can also be repeated or extreme exposure to critical events. We also must take into account all your friends and family that might be exposed to those same types of traumas who may be a first responder, who works with you, or on a different shift, which would be the third criteria for acute stress disorder. The second criteria for acute stress disorder was witnessing a trauma actually happen. So the first responder, you are continually exposed to these traumas without giving the proper time to process them of the exposure that you feel. Cumulative acute stress traumas as a first responder tend to add up. As a first responder, you must take time for yourself. You must first acknowledge that a call or several calls bothered you during your shift. You must find time for positive coping skills to process or decompress your shift. This can be as simple as meditating, talking to a peer, exercising, or requesting professional help for a psychological first aid. Do you know who your Employee Assistance Program, your EAP, is, and what resources are available to you? Or are we self-ignorant, ignorant on what is available to you, how strong you are, and the fact with help you can get past your issues? In today's world, if your home smoke detector goes off, we investigate what set it off and make sure it's not a hazard to ourselves, our family, or the house. If the check engine light comes on in our car, we get a diagnostic done to see what the problem is and how to fix it. But if we experience our body smoke detector, our engine light, the fears, the anxieties, and the depressions, what do? We ignore it. We push it aside or try to smother it with negative coping skills, alcohol, drugs, or promiscuity. In our daily calls, we listen to the dispatcher. We listen to fellow workers. We listen to victims, and we listen to complainants, and we respond accordingly. Yet we will not listen to ourselves or our body, nor will we respond accordingly. On the road, we don't hesitate to call for backup, another rig, more medics, or a dispatch supervisor. Yet we hesitate to ask for help when our mental welfare needs help. When you fail to attend your own mental welfare, you begin to get stressed, anxious, depressed, angry, and irritable. It doesn't only affect you, but also your significant other, family, and friends. Dr. Papazoglou talks about officers experience three types of traumas: anticipatory, vicarious, and direct traumas. Your significant other can experience these traumas also in their own way. Anticipatory trauma, you leaving for work, is my first responder coming home. Vicarious, when a coworker is injured, your significant other could say, when is my first responder's number going to be up? And they're going to get hurt. And direct trauma for your significant other, slowly watching their first responder deteriorate, drift away from everyone, and not knowing what to do. Traumas don't only affect you, but can affect so many other people in and out of your circle. Dr. Lomaurice Gardner is a police psychologist out of Southfield, Michigan. Dr. Gardner gifts first responders a challenge coin who he has counseled. On one side of the coin, it states tried, tested, proven. On the other side of the coin, it states courage under fire, courage after fire. All you first responders have been tried, tested, and proven, and shown your courage under fire. Let's now try, test, and prove your courage after fire and make the positive steps for a healthier you. God bless and stay safe.
Hopefully, your time with Consider This was beneficial. Our goal for this topic was to encourage maturity and health in your own life and relationships. Thanks for listening to Consider This.